Pay me, pay me, pay me my silver now. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my silver now.
Good morning, Bix Weir, Roota.com with your morning horn of Z's, your sip of chaga coffee. All right, First Republic. Where there's smoke, there's fire, shall we say? There's been smoke around First Republic for a very long time. Yesterday, I posted on the private road timeline to destruction, where I talked about what's going on behind the scenes with First Republic. This was before anything was announced yesterday. I published that in the morning for private road members. It's almost all come true now. So, just a brief background. First Republic is not necessarily different. They're going to tell you First Republic is different than any other bank because of blah, blah, blah. No, it's not true. No bank, not even the mighty JP Morgan, can withstand a run on the bank, meaning people pulling out their deposits. Not one bank on the planet. I hope everybody understands that. Banks create money 9 or 10 to 1, plus derivatives in the case of JP Morgan. So when they get a deposit in, say they get $1 million in deposits, they lend out $9 million, and it trickles down the banking cycle. It goes into other banks, and they create more and more money. Money is created and destroyed at the banking level. How is it destroyed? As people pull out their deposits, to keep that 9 or 10 to 1 ratio, they have to sell off assets. And that's exactly what happened at Silicon Valley Bank. That's exactly what happened at Signature Bank. And that's what's happening right now at First Republic Bank. They already lost over half of their deposits because people didn't feel safe. And when people don't feel safe, they'll go in and they'll take their money out. The gigantic mistake that they're making is they're putting it into larger banks with a gigantic derivative problem. It might be part of the plan. The good guys' plan to take all these mid-tier and small banks off the table as far as blame and give all the blame to the people who really deserve the blame. And that's the big banksters. JP Morgan, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, all the market riggers. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and all the foreign banks. Deutsche Bank, HSBC. Those are the entities that deserve the blame for all this. You can't blame the middle-sized banks. So that might be a plan, but the big fact is, yes, every single bank is going to fail. Every single one. Your community bank's going to fail. They cannot survive. They run on the same formula. Hold a little bit of the assets and invest all the rest. That's how banks make money. They give you a little pittance for having them hold your cash that you earned. They'll give you 3 or 4% now? And they'll go reinvest it somewhere. 10 times. They create 10 times the amount that are reinvest in somewhere for triple of what they give you. But they're much riskier investments, and they're longer term. So that's why when you go into a bank and you say, I want to take my money out, I'm not feeling very safe, and I'm clearly not getting enough to cover what I'm losing in inflation. Who's getting 6-7% return on their bank deposits? So you are losing money by having the bank hold your cash, even though the cash is losing money too. Hold your money in silver, my God. My God. There's the no-brainer of a lifetime. I was watching a video, and there's a bunch of good silver analysts out there now. I mean, a lot of them are new, which is fine. People are learning the story and talking about it, and that's what people want to see. But one of the guys was equating the amount of silver that's been mined in history, supposedly about 57 billion ounces, to the amount of people there are, 8 billion people. And so he came up with that's 7 ounces per person, right? For me, I know that over 50 billion of those ounces are gone. They'll never come back. Never, ever, ever. They're in the bottom of landfills. They might come back if silver was, $5,000 an ounce. People will go through the landfills and try to, find all the little silver specks that you can find. but the majority of silver that's ever been mined is absolutely gone. So you're really looking about 6. I think it's about 6, maybe 7 billion ounces. But most of that is not in investable silver. Most of that's in silverware and jewelry and things like that people have. They can in a pinch. I mean, most jewelry isn't even real silver. And it costs people a lot of money to buy jewelry because of the art factor in there. So you're not paying for the metal, really. Maybe a little bit in gold. But the fact that silver's not going to come back is just another one of the zillion reasons why you shouldn't own any gold at all. You should own as much silver as possible at this point in time. Now, it's not like I'm not a fan of gold. I'm a gigantic fan of gold. I love the thought of the massive amounts of gold that the United States really has that is ready to be implemented. But the few problems with gold is, number one, nobody knows how much there is. Nobody. And idiots like Jeffrey Christian will tell you there's 200,000 tons that's ever been mined. The GATA guys, they're starting to see the light, but they're slow at seeing the light. There's maybe 5, maybe 10 times as much gold in the world, and you're just not allowed to know about it. It's control of that information of how much gold there is in the world. Another problem with gold is the majority of gold is held by the bankers. The vast majority of gold is held by bankers. Now, a lot of these banks will be going down, and they will be required by law as they pummel into bankruptcy to sell off their gold. Same with the Bitcoin held by these big corporations. As they go down, they're going to be required to sell off the Bitcoin. Not many banks at all hold silver. I don't think any anymore after JP Morgan got rid of their 1.2 billion ounces through Bank of America and ended up in the hands of, I think, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, and the U.S. Mint. But that's just me. Don't listen to me. I'm a conspiracy theorist. Definitely Buffett's involved, by the way. So, yeah, that's where we are. So go check out the video on the private road at Road to Roota, Timeline to Destruction. Really interesting stuff. I do want to play for you this. Now, right now what's happening, they haven't declared, the FDIC hasn't declared, even though the news media said, don't worry, it's going to be a bailout. Oh, now JP Morgan's coming in, PNC is coming in, and they're going to take care of it. Listen to what Janet Yellen said last month when being questioned by Congress.
Don't have time. I need to be able to drill in on a couple of things. Let me start with some of the banking issues we're dealing with on it. Will the deposits in every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of their size, be fully insured now? Are they fully recovered? Every bank, every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of the size of the deposit, will they get the same treatment that SVBP just got or Signature Bank just got?
Now, it's not like this congressman doesn't know that this is a trick question. He knows exactly what he's saying. He knows if she says no, everybody's going to run out to their bank and try to get their money out of every single bank on the planet. If she says yes, that absolutely destroys the theory that the FDIC will only insure, with their $125 billion they have left, only insure $250,000 per person. He knows this is the biggest question that Janet Yellen will ever face, and watch her completely fumble it.
A bank only gets that treatment if a majority of the FDIC board, a supermajority of the Fed board, and I, in consultation with the president, determine that the failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences.
So here's what she said. She said flat out, if everybody determines, all our friends, and I mean, she's being told what to say by her controller. If all our friends here think it's gonna start a systemic problem, meaning that everybody's gonna look at this failure and say, oh my God. So obviously the big banks like Silicon Valley Bank, like First Republic, everybody would run to their bank account. But here's the thing. The entire world or at least the United States, now knows something's going on with the banks. Now is learning about FDIC insurance. By the way, go get yourself as many beneficiaries as possible, because every beneficiary counts as $250,000. If you have $1 million in the bank, go get 4 beneficiaries that you trust, because that money's going to go to them. But go get 4 beneficiaries, because every single one of those beneficiaries gets the $250,000. A little known rule for you people who haven't been on the road to Roota for a while. And do that today. You're running out of time. If you have over $250,000 in the bank, if you have a business you're running, you can get a bunch of beneficiaries. I think you can get beneficiaries to your business too, because the business is only covered for $250,000. I don't care if you have a multi-zillion-dollar business. $250,000 is all you get. You better look into that. Anyway, so that was her answer. Her answer was, if it's a systemic problem, name me one bank. Now that the whole country knows, if one bank goes down that doesn't cover the uninsured depositors, everybody's going to run into the bank. Now check out what he says.
Is your
we
plan
made that determination?
Right. So what is your plan to keep large depositors from moving their funds out of community banks into the big banks? We have seen the mergers of banks over the past decade. I'm concerned you're about to accelerate that by encouraging anyone who has a large deposit in a community bank to say, we're not going to make you whole, but if you go to one of our preferred banks, we will make you whole at that point.
This guy's awesome. Langford. Remember that name. It's so true. So all you conspiracy guys, this is the plan for the big banks just to consolidate power. And Janet Yellen completely fumbles this too.
Look, I mean,
Wait, you said look, and then you said I mean. Was look not what you wanted to say? We didn't understand what you meant by look? We are looking at you, Janet, and we're looking at a criminal who's not being honest with the people.
It's certainly not something that we're encouraging.
That is happening right now.
That is happening because depositors are concerned about the bank failures that have happened.
No, depositors are concerned that you, Janet Yellen, won't give the same kind of treatment to a community bank that you give to a large criminal bank. That's the only reason it's happening. I'm telling you, Janet Yellen is going to say all banks are covered, all deposits are covered in every bank. What does that do to the soundness of the US dollar? That's when trust and faith is absolutely destroyed, and it tells you they're going to print to infinity. Buy your silver, massive amounts of silver now.
And whether or not other banks could also
No, it's happening because you're fully insured no matter what the amount is. If you're in a big bank, you're not fully insured if you're in a community bank.
Well, you're not fully insured. And
you were at Signature, and it just barely met that threshold. You were at Signature.
Well, we felt that there was a serious risk of contagion that could have brought down and triggered runs on many banks. And that's something, given that our judgment is that the banking system overall is safe and sound, depositors should have confidence in the system, and we took these actions.
So there's
wow. we took that stance because we thought people wouldn't trust the system, and they should feel safe that the system's fine. But if you have a small bank, we won't bail it out. Uninsured depositors. That is a flat out 100% a lie. Why? Because any bank now that is under the purview of the Federal Reserve System, the FDIC, Janet Yellen, and Joe Biden, any bank goes down and they don't bail all the people out, you would see a stampede the very next day on every bank. And every bank has the same problem. It's the problem of fiat money. It's the problem of fractionally reserved banking. Banks create money at 10 to 1. Banks lend out money. Every dollar you give a bank, they lend out 9. And they lend it out mostly long term, longer term than would survive a run on a bank. This is going to get really ugly. And you've got 330 million people in the United States who are going to turn their anger right at the banks, right as planned, right as rain. And that's the end game. I don't know what day it's going to happen. I have a timeline for when First Republic is going to go. Well, let me take you where we are right now with First Republic. As of Friday, there was all kinds of reports that said FDIC has bailed out First Republic, but that has not been announced by the FDIC. These are bankers making announcements. These are financial news outlets making announcements. Everything's fine. Don't panic this weekend. Don't you dare go into your bank and get money out this weekend. FDIC prepares to place First Republic under receivership. Yesterday it said FDIC places First Republic. On the Reuters, on the same article, I had it yesterday, it was updated an hour ago. FDIC prepares to make take First Republic under receivership. The U.S. Deposit Insurance Corporation is preparing to place First Republic Bank under receivership imminently. A person familiar with the matter said on Friday, these are bankers trying to save their ass. They want to be the first ones to get their money out before everybody else. Sending shares of the lender down nearly 50% in extended trading. The U.S. banking regulator decided the troubled regional lender's position has deteriorated. And they decided it's deteriorated. Over 50% of their deposits were pulled out last week. Over 50%. There is no more time to pursue a rescue through the private sector, the source told Reuters. Actually, it was pulled out since a month ago, so now there's probably not much left. Big banks, including JP Morgan Chase, PNC Financial, are vying to buy First Republic following its seizure by the government. These are banks that just lent First Republic 1 month ago $30 billion. They don't want to buy it. They know if they don't, and the FDIC doesn't, Janet Yellen's in a pickle. But here's the thing. Is JP Morgan and PNC going to bail out the next 100 banks, the next 1,000 banks that have the same problem as First Republic? It's the same problem. All depositors think their money is sitting right there at the teller's stand. And they're just flat out wrong. Your money's not there. It's in Joe's house. It's in Fred's house. And they won't be paying that back for 20, 30 years. You willing to wait that long with earning no interest? As inflation destroys the purchasing power of the money? Can you see the death spiral the once powerful US dollar is going through? And it will be the failure of the banks. It was always the failure of the banks. Ultimately, everybody's going to get bailed out, and that's when silver and gold go through the roof. But silver will fly like a knife through butter through $50. It's all-time high in 1980. It'll fly knife through butter through $500. I don't know where it will stop. It won't be on the COMEX. That criminal exchange will be shut down. You won't know the price of silver. You won't know the price of gold. You'll know they're worth a lot. You'll know you'll want get your hands on it, but no one's selling it. You won't be able to, take $1,000 down to your local coin shop, and he won't be selling anything. He says, I don't know what it's worth. I'd sell it to you, but I don't know what it's worth. I think it's worth a lot more because the banking system has crashed. So I'm not going to sell an ounce of it. This silver's my silver. I own it right now. Who are the biggest silver bugs in the world? The people who own the silver. They're not going to sell it. They're the ones who want to buy more. All the silver dealers in your town will want to be buying more silver. They'll be buying silver using whatever fiat money they have left. And people will need fiat money too. It's such a bizarre world we're living in. If you can't go to the bank and get cash, what are you going to do? Yes, it's so much more complicated than people make it. But I do have faith that the U.S. government, actually, the good guys within the U.S. government, have had over 120 years to plan this thing out. 110 years to plan out what to do at the end of fiat money. And they have been. They've been working on this plan for a hell of a long time. This is their end game. Yes, they want the big banks to be the blame. They would love it if nobody benefited from the changeover from unbacked fiat money to a new type of monetary system. That's why they're trying to take out, get cryptos as low as possible. And everybody scared of cryptos because they don't want people to benefit, but there will always be people who benefit from the stupidity and arrogance and ignorance of government and politicians and bankers. So, PNC and JP Morgan First Republic declined to comment on the report. Surprise. If the San Francisco bank lender falls into receivership, it would be the third U.S. bank to collapse since March. First Republic said this week its deposits had slumped more than $100 billion since the first quarter. Shares of the bank closed down 43%. By the way, they're trading, I think, at less than $1 now. They were $2.99 at this point in time. At the lowest point, the bank had a market cap of nearly $557 million, far cry from its peak valuation of more than $40 billion in November 2001. FDIC, the Treasury Department, and the Federal Reserve were among the government bodies that orchestrated meetings with financial companies about a lifeline for the bank. So Janet Yellen cannot bail them out and bail out the non-insured depositors without losing all credibility. But she has to do it. So she's trying to get JP Morgan and friends to be the one that takes care of the non-insured depositors. Oh, by the way, JP Morgan, I think they put in $5 billion into this bank a month ago. Will that be bailed out by the FDIC? The big thing is, what will the FDIC pay? I think the FDIC is pretty staunch in that they know they have less than 1% of all that they guarantee. And if one bank takes it out, where's the trust and faith in the FDIC? The FDIC in 2008 had to go to Congress. I think they got $300 billion. I don't remember how they needed it. They didn't have it. Now, if the FDIC went to Congress today, they won't get a penny. Congress can't agree on, the toilet paper for the men's stall or the women's stall or the quadrisexual whatever stall. Even if they use toilet paper, I don't know if they use toilet paper. In Congress, they can't agree on. They're not going to agree on the budget and all that. Don't you guys see? This is it. We're in the middle of the end game. Get your physical silver in your own possession. If you love gold, that's great. You want a lot of gold or a little gold? If you want a little gold, go buy gold today. That's a good idea. You'll have a little gold. If you want a lot of gold, buy silver today and then swap it for gold when the market is freely traded, and it'll go 1-to-1. I think 1-to-1. Probably surpass 1-to-1. Silver's so much more important for our future. But right now, above ground, there's 6 billion ounces of gold and supposedly 6 billion ounces of silver. The gold is readily in investable form. The silver's in jewelry, and there's maybe 2 or 3 billion in investable form, but there's probably about 3 billion in jewelry and silverware and stuff like that get melted down. I mean, it screams that silver should be valued maybe 1-to-2. 1 ounce of silver buys you 2 ounces of gold and vice versa. I know the price is rigged. The question is how rigged. That's the question you got to ask yourself. If you love gold, you should buy 85 ounces of 85. Right now, you can get 85 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold, right around there. Yeah, there's commissions and maybe 75. I'm not quite sure. By the way, Andy Scheckman and Miles Franklin does gold to silver swaps. If you have gold, he'll swap it for the silver. And then wait until the market becomes sane, probably after the chaos, and you'll see that, even at the minimum of 7-to-1, which is what it's coming out of the ground at, you do 10 times better. And then you could swap that for 10 times the amount of gold you have right now. You could take the gold you have right now. Say you have 10 ounces of gold right now. Swap it for silver. Swap it back when the markets reopen after the crash, and you'll have 10 times the amount of gold you had. Does that make sense? If you love gold, buy silver. If you love silver and want to hang on to it, yeah. I don't know anybody who wants to sell their silver, truthfully. They'd rather pass it on to their kids. Maybe buy a Ferrari with a couple ounces at some point. Anyway, the Fed's assessment of its inadequate. Oh, yeah. So the Fed comes out with this report. They even admitted they did things wrong. Amazing. The Fed is falling on its own sword. Wait, who predicted that years ago, Bix Weir? Large banks had orchestrated earlier a lifeline for First Republic, placing $30 billion in combined deposits from U.S. banking heavyweights Bank of America, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, and J.P. Morgan. But First Republic struggled to find support from larger banks or private equity firms on its proposed move to create a bad bank or sell assets such as securities and its mortgage book. The large bank who placed the deposits either declined to comment or were unavailable to comment. First Republic, which reported its first quarter earnings on Monday, said it plans to shrink its balance sheet and slash expenses. That's what they have to do. If they lose the deposits, they have to shrink their balance sheet by 10 times what they lost in their deposits, which is really hard to do when you lose 50% of your deposits because you don't even have it. It's just insane. And by the way, all banks are structured this way. So when the bank run starts, everybody's going to be trying to sell the same shit. And oh, by the way, if you have a 401k or mutual fund or money market account, you got the same shit as the banks. And they'll all be selling the same stuff that you'll be trying to sell. I hope that makes sense. All right. This is from U.S. bank locations. These are U.S. banks in total assets, 1 through, I think there's like 4,000. I don't know how many. These are the top. I think it's 4,000, 4,500 or something banks. 4,700 banks as of this was 2022. But if you look, the strongest and biggest banks: J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Citibank. By the way, Bank of America's I hear struggling behind the scenes. Capital One, TD Bank, Charles Schwab, that'll be gone. Bank of New York Mellon, State Street Bank, Citizens Bank, First Republic Bank, number 15. That's where they were. They had $212 billion. And now in assets, theoretically, I don't know what the fair market value of those assets are now. This was as of beginning of the year, 2023. So right in January. Number 15, you can erase that. That gets erased. So all these banks, look at the banks after First Republic. So everything below First Republic is now susceptible to a bank run. Morgan Stanley Private Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, already done. Fifth Third Bank, soon to be gone. Morgan Stanley Bank, soon to be gone. Manufacturers Trust, Key Bank, Huntington Bank, Ally Bank, BMO, HSBC USA, American Express National Bank, National Trust Company, Regions Bank, Discover Bank, UBS, USAA. I think that's the Armed Forces one. Signature Bank, First Citizens Bank, MUFG, Santander. They should have been gone a long time ago. Citibank, Synchronicity Bank, Bank of the West, Flagstar, Zion. I heard Zion is the next to go. Keep an eye on that. Comerica, First Horizon. All these banks are gone. All these banks are going to have runs on the banks. All this money will be poof, evaporated, or guaranteed by the Federal Reserve, the only entity on the planet that can print money to solve the problem. As Alan Greenspan said, we'll never default because the Fed can always print as much money. You cannot guarantee the purchasing power of that money that they print. That's the key. Sure, Janet Yellen can print as much money and call it an emergency. But would anybody have faith that the U.S. dollar, held all over the world as the world's reserve currency, would have any value at all at that point in time? Would you take it? If you knew someone had a printing press and it's going to print as much money, there's no limits on the amount printed. And oh, by the way, Congress is going to completely default on the debt ceiling and all that. This is all being orchestrated from behind. Prepare yourself. another congressman asking Janet Yellen about the banking crisis. Listen to this one.
So, Madam Secretary, does insuring every deposit at every FDIC-insured bank in the nation over $250,000 require congressional approval?
This is not something that we have looked at.
Wait a minute. This is not something that we have looked at. So you didn't even ask yourself? This is a flat out lie. You've been planning this for decades. It is something you've looked at. You've done a zillion studies on this. I want to hear that again and then hear her excuse.
So, Madam Secretary, does insuring every deposit at every FDIC-insured bank in the nation over $250,000 require congressional approval?
This is not something that we have looked at. It's not something that we're considering. All that I have said is that when the failure of a bank is judged by supermajorities of the FDIC board, the Fed board, and myself in consultation with the president, when such a failure is deemed to create systemic risk, which I think of as the risk of a contagious bank run, that we are likely to invoke the systemic risk exception, which permits the FDIC to protect all depositors, and that would be a case-by-case determination.
I understand.
I have not considered or discussed anything having to do with blanket insurance or guarantees of
2
all
points.
deposits.
I have not. So they haven't even thought about it. They haven't discussed it. No, but it never came up. It's such a fucking lie. She's so stupid. I met her, what was it, in 2000, right around 2000, year 2000, maybe 99. I met Janet Yellen at a small banker meeting in San Francisco. She was the head of the San Francisco Fed. She gave a little talk. I think there was like 30 bankers in the room at this ritzy club in San Francisco called the PU Club, Pacific Union Club. And it was a private club. A banker friend of mine said, "Come on, you got to go to this with me." And she sat there and explained why all these bankers should be investing massive amounts of money and turn all their clients into investing in China. And I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God. Are you for real? Do you really want to destroy the United States of America?" Yes, she does. That was the plan. And I think I don't know if I asked her in the session or afterwards. And I said, "Isn't there a risk of moving all our manufacturing to China? What would we do if all of a sudden China became our enemy?" This was 20 years ago. And she went, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. She's told what to do. She is the mouthpiece for probably, I don't know which entity. One of the bankers is telling her, probably Jamie Dimon's peeping in there. "Here's what you say." But, yep, that's what's going on. Again, I talk more about this on the private road, Timeline to Destruction. Lots going on behind the scenes. I'll keep you guys updated. You want to join the private road, Road to Roota, go to roadtoroota.com. I'll send you the coolest coin ever made, the silver Roota coin. Right here, the Roota Lives coin, hand-painted, double-struck, each individually numbered with a certificate of authentication. These things will be absolutely worth the cost of a subscription, in my opinion, and will be huge collector's items in the near future. You heard it here first at the Road to Roota. I'll talk to you guys later.